so they want to give up a chunk of the farm depending on where they locate that interchange. The idea is to open up a whole new section for development.
Well,
regardless
obviously.
A frontage road system is proposed along northeast 126th Avenue for this alternative to provide access to homes and farms that line this road currently. Biotic communities, traffic noise, floodplains, visual impacts, and indirect and cumulative impacts of the proposed project. Thank you for your participation and attendance tonight. It is now time for the open house segment of this public information meeting.
That up there.
There's going to be overpasses over the top of every road system.
That's what we're hoping for this time, yeah. We haven't gotten into nitty-gritty design details yet. We wanted this, because we want to keep as much of this open as possible. Because you realize there's people that live there and you
No, they just want to make sure that everything is being considered. Every
I
alternative.
guess why didn't they
that's not what happened up
present this to begin with? How come all after
Well,
all these years?
at the beginning it was just one big glob.
Well, one big corner, right up.
And it stopped here, and it stopped there. Right, it was just one.
But it was a corner right halfway between 46 and 56.
It's still there.
But they've added these other ones now.
Yeah, this is the no bill.
Yeah,
35.
but you're talking about running up 46 and running up 56.
Either one, not both.
No, but I mean those are alternatives that weren't there the last 2 years.
They were there.
No, they weren't there.
It was one big.
It was one corridor. Originally it was about that wide. Last year it stretched out to that wide. And now you're going, well, maybe here, maybe here, maybe here.
Well, public comment said, why don't you just use 56? Why don't you just use 46? So the study area was expanded to include public comment. Yeah, public comment does. There's a no-build alternative to include public comment that said don't build it, which is expanding 35 and I-80.
Oh, okay.
Polk County's project, right?
We haven't gotten to that part yet, but eventually they're going to approve one of the alternatives, or maybe none of them. They might not approve any of them.
No, anybody has the option to come and voice their opinion at these meetings, whether your property is directly affected or not. So, yeah, it can affect how you get on the interstate system. It can affect how you get to your property. It can affect your value of your property, any of that. So, yeah.
And then future continuations.
So what's the best way to voice your opinion?
I don't know that we have a
best way?
Well, I don't know that we
to have it in writing, probably.
Yeah, that would be
as
probably.
Opposed to just telling someone. And at what point will a decision be made on this rascal?
What is that timeline? Does it say? It looks like November. Determine and evaluate reasonable alternatives and assess impacts.
Is
in November, December timeframe, we'll get some alternatives that will be carried forward. So we'll narrow it down at that point.
okay, and not building anything is an alternative.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
What's the cost?
Good question. A 4-lane divided highway, you can figure about $1.5 million a mile.
$1.5 million a mile.
That's the biggest question: is how are we going to fund that if it's built? And most
Right.
likely it'll be through federal funding of some type.
Yeah. So that's our best friend. Is the lack of funding for those of us that think this is a ridiculous venture.
But if you do this one, the homes that are on here
will be impacted because it would be an access controlled facility.
Yeah.
But the point that you guys are bringing up is what we want to hear, because if we get, we would like I said, tend not to favor something like this because of the property impact, okay? Because it basically means you're going to have...
who's going to make the overall decisions on each of these alternatives? Is it going to be the taxpayers? Is it going to be the Snyder and Associates, the Polk County? Or?
we're not a decision-making body.
I know, but
We're people to obtain public comment, gather and prepare the environmental documents, and so on and so forth.
Scenario where you vote for what?
It could be put on the ballot as a public referendum at some point in time.
Yeah.
Right now makes more sense than the rest of them. Everybody's leaning towards one. Yep.
Everybody has their preferences, as each of you do.
But that's not been
But no,
we're not that far yet.
we want to take all the comments we get tonight, and in addition to the public comments we get comments from federal agencies, and we get comments from state agencies, we get comments from local government. Once we get all of those, then what we will identify of all these alternatives on this drawing that are considered reasonable will be carried forward for more detailed environmental impact analysis. People that prefer this, I've heard from people that prefer this, and I've heard from people that don't like any of them.
Well, obviously, if you build a road, people are going to drive on it.
Right.
If you don't build a road, people won't drive on it.
That's why there's Project Termini, basically, in this particular case, 69, and the systems interchange at 80 and 65. However, to answer your question, whatever alternative is carried forward, it has to have the possibility of it being extended to the west. We don't have to know specifically where it's going to go. We just have to know that you could possibly do it.
You said to Highway 17.
Right.
What is the need? Why aren't we just preserving a corridor? What is the need right now for this?
Well, in fact, it could be something as simple as corridor preservation without actually the road being constructed in the near term.
I don't see, with $4 gas and Ankeny sitting with 850 empty townhomes and about that many houses for sale.
Here, I'll give you a hint. But the thing that I find somewhat, I mean, there's certain transportation improvements we need, but you certainly don't want to pick an alternative that would contribute to this notion of urban sprawl, and roadways that extend from one drainage basin to another actually creates that because you can't even provide infrastructure to them. So the idea is, I think what we should be doing is forcing as much of the growth into the existing area as is possible.
And when we did the comprehensive plan for Polk County, that's exactly what the public was instructed not to do. They would not allow us. They took 3 years of good growth by Ankeny, extrapolated that out 15 years, times it by 2, and then they said that 150,000 people were coming to Polk County when the Federal Census Bureau says that in the next 20 years only 28,000 people are coming to Polk County. And then they told us don't put any of the housing inside the existing city limits, and they had us put it out there. And that's what's driven 7,000 acres to be annexed by Ankeny.
Right.
And
we got to change the policy because first off, we got to increase the density, population density per square mile, and because we can't build the infrastructure, I'm just offering editorial comment.
They built that Highway 5 bypass hoping to get all kinds of development around there.
Right.
Nobody's built a thing on it.
Right.
In 5 years or 8 years or whatever it's
It's a
been.
nice road. It's nice to get to the
Yeah, but
airport
we don't need any more nice roads, do we?
Right. And especially when, my concern is, it's just ending in Highway 69. If it's for traffic flow, just expand the interstate.
One of the questions that came up, is this consistent with the land use plan adopted by the city of Huxley and or Story County? That I can't answer. I think that's another issue. And the other issues, I think, is when you go from one drainage basin into another, I think you're really contributing to an urban sprawl situation. You know, and I think those are issues that really are kind of important.
So what drainage?
Well, the local hands are already pushing for it, so it seems as though a lot of the local officials have already made up their minds on it, and so, you know, that's hopefully they can be persuaded